Good morning, students. Welcome to Complex Analysis live lectures. In this lecture, we'll discuss function of complex variable, limit of a complex function. Okay. So, in last class, we discussed few definitions like what is meant by open set, closed set, and interior point, exterior point, a boundary point, right? Then we also discussed define what is meant by a domain and region. Okay, we'll continue from where we stopped. So there are few more basic definitions. We say that a set S, of course, which is subset of C, is said to be bounded. Is said to be bounded if we can find a circle, okay, such that this S is contained in lies completely inside that circle. That means if S lies inside a circle, say mod Z equal to some R. That means you take a circle whose origin is 0 and some radius R. And if you can find such R, then we say that S is bounded. Okay, is definition clear? That means we say that set S is closed if we can able to find a circle, okay, whose center is origin and radius is R. Then we say that such set is bounded, otherwise S is said to be unbounded. So if we can't find a circle, then we say that it is unbounded. If we can find some circle, then we say that it is bounded. So if we quickly take some example, you take mod Z. So S is such that all points of S lies this one bigger than points whose absolute value is bigger than 1 and less than 2. Can it be a bounded set? Is this set is bounded? Is this set bounded?
Yes, sir.
Why?
Yes, sir.
How this S look like? This S is mod Z. So if you take mod Z less than 1, that means it is greater than 1, and mod Z less than 2. Okay, so this much part, whatever we are having, this is your S, right? Yes or no? So
Yes, sir. Yes,
whether
sir.
by this picture whether it is bounded or not?
No, sir.
No. No. That means can you find some circle, okay, such that this S is completely lie inside? This value is 1 and this value is 2. Can you give me some circle? Is it possible to give some circle where S lies inside that circle? That means every point of S is inside that circle. Is possible or not?
No, sir.
Not possible?
Possible.
Think
0
it.
to 1.
Huh? But in this space itself, can you can't imagine you can take a bigger circle? Huh? Suppose if I take of radius 3, if I take the circle mod Z is equal to 3, then what is mod Z is equal to 3? How it look like? Even though it is not looking like circle, but assume it is circle, right? So this is mod Z is equal to 3. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So inside this S is lying inside that S. Inside mod Z is equal to 3, right?
Yes, sir.
So therefore this S is bounded or not? Is that clear? Any problem? Anyone having doubt?
No, sir.
Even you can take mod z is equal to 2. That is also more than sufficient. Okay. Now if I take second example, suppose take imaginary, my S is imaginary part of Z is greater than or equal to 0. What can you say about this? What is this set? It is all Z, a complex number such that imaginary part of Z is greater than or equal to 0. How it look like? Can somebody tell the picture graph of this set? How Z is, you can write Z as x plus iy, right?
Right. Yes,
This,
sir.
this is x plus
But why
iy.
is greater
Any such that imaginary part of Z is what? Y. Y is greater than or equal
than
to
equal to
0, right? So what is condition is required? Condition is only for imaginary part which is greater than or equal to 0. That means there is no condition on x. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So how
Yes,
your
sir.
graph look like? How your graph look like? Suppose if I take this graph, then tell me where will be this S? What? What is condition? We require that y should be greater than or equal to 0. X can be positive, negative, 0, anything, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So that means this much part above, yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Right? So this
Yes,
is
sir.
your imaginary part of Z greater than or equal to 0. Now tell me whether this S is bounded set. Is this bounded? Because you are taking entire upper half plane. Okay. So you cannot find a circle which is lies inside that. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Because there is no end. There is no end. It keeps going. Okay. So you cannot find a fixed circle where this imaginary part of Z completely lies. So therefore this imaginary part of Z greater than or equal to 0 is unbounded set. Is that clear? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So you can check
Yes, sir.
similarly, real part of Z is greater than or equal, real part of Z greater than or equal to 0. This set, okay, is also unbounded, right? Okay. Now when we'll see few more, one more definition, interesting one, which is called an accumulation point. Accumulation point. So you take a set S. S is a subset of C. Okay. Then we say that, and Z naught you call it, suppose belongs to C. Z naught belongs to C. Then we say that Z naught is called an accumulation point. Accumulation point of S if every deleted neighborhood of Z naught, if every deleted neighborhood of Z naught, deleted neighborhood, I'll write NBHD of Z naught intersects S. That means what? That is same as saying that S intersection with, how we have denoted deleted neighborhood of Z naught? This n epsilon of Z naught is this normal neighborhood of Z naught. In that deleted neighborhood means Z naught won't be there. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
This should be non-empty. Okay, this should be non-empty, and it should be true for every deleted neighborhood. That means it should be true for all epsilon greater than 0. Is this definition clear? What is meant by? What is meant by
Point.
a accumulation point? Okay. So in real analysis, you might have already heard such definition, which also sometimes called limit point. Okay. Fine. Now, so what are all different points we have seen? Accumulation point. Earlier we have seen boundary point. Okay. Then interior point and exterior point. And we have defined open set if it does not contain any its boundary point. Very good. And closed if it contains all its boundary points. Right. Now we will relate open set and closed set using this accumulation point and interior point. Okay. Fine. So a set yes is closed if and only if S contains all its accumulation points. Okay. S contains all its accumulation points. Okay. This is one. And second one we will prove, say a set S is open. By definition of for open set and closed set, we have defined in terms of boundary points. Now for this open set, we will give in terms of interior point. A set S is open if and only if every point of S is an interior point. Okay. So for closed set, you can define closed set in terms of accumulation points and open set in terms of interior points. Okay. Is statement clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So proofs is not at all difficult. We will prove one. Suppose assume that S is closed. So suppose S is closed. Then what we want to show? We want to show that S contains all its accumulation points. So we'll prove this by contradiction. That means assume that there is some point which is an accumulation point, but that is not belongs to S. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So we want to prove that every accumulation point of S is in S. So that is not true means what? So I'll write here, we want to prove that every accumulation point of S is, or you can say belongs to S. Belongs to S. So we want to prove this. So suppose not. What is meant by saying suppose this is not true? When we say that this statement is false, there exists at least one point, there exists at least one accumulation point which does not belong to S. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
you say
sir.
suppose, that means there exists some Z naught, that means this implies there exists some Z naught, okay, of course which belongs to C, is an accumulation point of S, but what is the condition? But Z naught does not belongs to S. Is that clear?
Yes.
So somewhere we should get a contradiction, then this supposition will become wrong. Right? Fine. Now what is the definition of saying that some Z naught is an accumulation point of S? We have defined here. What is meant by saying something is an accumulation point?
Their
Every
intersection.
every deleted neighborhood of Z naught intersects S. Right? So this implies, because this Z naught is an accumulation point, we get that this S intersection, this N epsilon of Z naught minus Z naught, this is non-empty. This is true for all epsilon greater than 0, right? Now remember, this Z naught is not in S. Okay, so Z naught is not in S. So this is same as saying that, so as Z naught is not in S, this implies this, even if I include n epsilon Z naught in Z, then also it is non-empty. That means this is still true or not? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Because Z
Yes,
naught
sir.
is not a common point. Are you following? So Z naught is not a common point. Z naught is not there in S. So Z naught is not there in the intersection. Okay. So even if you put it Z naught in this neighborhood, still it is non-empty only. Are you following? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Also Z naught is not in S. This implies Z naught is in S complement. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Right? This implies this S complement intersection with n epsilon Z naught is also non-empty. This is true for all epsilon greater than 0. Why? What is the common element? At least one element can you give which is common?
Z naught.
Very good. Z naught.
Z naught.
Z naught is there in this neighborhood as well as S complement, right? So if you observe these two statements, what you will get? What can you say about this Z naught? What can you say about this point? Which point satisfies these two conditions?
Z naught.
Z naught, what can you say about this Z naught? Z naught is satisfying this n epsilon of Z naught intersection S is non-empty. N epsilon of Z naught intersection S complement is also non-empty.
Z naught is the position will be wrong.
No, but from this what you will conclude? First tell me.
Z naught is the accumulation point of S complements part.
Z naught, every neighborhood of Z naught is intersecting S as well as intersecting S complement. So therefore, what you can say about this Z naught? By definition,
Boundary point.
very good. It is a boundary point. Yes or no? Z naught is a
Yes, sir.
boundary point. So we can conclude that from the above two, Z naught is a boundary point of S, right? Now as S is closed, we have not used so far, S is closed. Is that clear? So as S is closed, by definition of closed set, it should contain all its boundary points. So we should get that Z naught belongs to S, which is a contradiction. Why? We have assumed that Z naught is not in S, and we are getting that Z naught is in S. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So this contradiction arised because we have assumed that suppose not. Suppose our whatever we want to prove, if that is not true, we are getting a contradiction. That means it has to be true. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So therefore, S contains all its accumulation points. Okay, I'm just written shortcut in short way. Is one way clear?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. Now take the other way. That means conversely, suppose S contains all its accumulation points. Then what we want to show? We want to show that S is a closed set. That means, what is meant by saying something is a closed set? S contains all its boundary points.
All its boundary points.
Boundary points. See, if we can understand what is given and what we want to prove, most of the time proofs are easy. So we will prove this by again contradiction. Okay, suppose not. What is meant by saying suppose our claim is not true?
Yes, does not contain all its.
At least there will be one boundary point which does not belongs to S. Is this clear? Yes,
Yes,
or no?
sir.
Yes, sir.
So again you can call
Yes,
it
sir.
Z naught, okay, which is a Z naught is a boundary point of S, but Z naught is not in S. Is this clear? Again we should get somewhere contradiction. Now what is the definition of Z naught is a boundary point of S? By definition it says that this n epsilon of Z naught intersection S is non-empty, okay, and also this n epsilon Z naught intersection S complement is also non-empty,
Non-empty.
right? Now again this Z naught is not in S, okay, so therefore, and this intersection is non-empty, that means after removing Z naught from this neighborhood still this is non-empty or not? This Z
Yes,
naught
sir.
is not a common point. So if I remove from this neighborhood, still this intersection is non-empty. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Because Z naught is not in S. So since Z naught is not in S, this n epsilon Z naught minus Z naught, even if you remove from that neighborhood, this is still non-empty. Yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
But by this, what is the
Yes, sir.
definition of this one? Whenever Z naught satisfies this condition, what we can say about Z naught? Z naught is an accumulation point.
Accumulation point.
Yeah, Z naught is an accumulation point of S. But what is our assumption? Our assumption is conversely we have assumed that S contains all its accumulation points. That means Z naught should belongs to S, but which is a contradiction to our supposition that this, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So therefore, suppose not cannot be true. So that means our claim is true. That means S should contain all its boundary points. Yes or no? Therefore, S contains all its boundary points implies S is closed. Right? Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So whatever way we are doing, we did for this closed one and the definition of accumulation point, you prove this second one that I will give it as exercise. That means, remember, if you want to learn a subject, learn something, you should do something on your own. I can give hint. Suppose assume S is open, then what we want to prove?
Every point
Is an interior point, that is what we want to prove. So prove it by contradiction. Suppose not, that means there is some point of S which is not an interior point. Is that clear? Then apply when we say that some point is not an interior point. By definition, interior point means there is at least one neighborhood which is completely contained in S.
Yes.
Yes.
So it is not a neighborhood means it is not an interior point means you take any neighborhood that is not completely contained in S. Okay. So simplify that. You will come to know that that point is a boundary point which you will get a contradiction. Are you following? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Similarly,
Yes, sir.
converse, assume that every point of S is an interior point. Then we want to show that that set is open. That means we want to show that it does not have any boundary point. So again, prove it by contradiction. Suppose assume that some point of that is a boundary point. Okay, some point of S is a boundary point. Then you will get a contradiction. Are you following? So you try.
Yes,
If
sir.
you are not getting, I'll again explain in next class. Okay. So try everyone. So in next class, if I ask, you say, sir, I didn't get, I won't agree. I want from up to what, which steps you have gone and where you have stuck. Okay. Fine.
Yes, sir.
Now let's move to little further. So we define what is meant by a function. So far we have seen domain, range and all. Now we can define what is meant by a function of a complex variable. Okay. So how we can define? Say S is a subset of C. So let S be a subset of complex plane C. Then a function define a function f on S defined on S is a, it is just like in real function how we define. For every point of S there should be a associated point, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So a function f on a S is a rule, you can, if you want you can call it rule, such that every point of S is associated with unique complex number. Okay. Yes or no? If you want,
Yes,
you
sir.
can call it unique complex number W naught. So every point Z of S is associated with unique complex number. Whether it should be a unique complex number, it is not necessary, right? Is it unique? Unique is not necessary. 2 points can also go to yes or no? What I'm saying here, if one point cannot go to two numbers, that is what meaning of this. Is this clear? That
Yes,
is
sir.
for every, you can call it Z of S, there exists W from complex, you can call it C, such that this f of Z is equal to W. Is this clear? Or if you want, you can write it here Z naught, then W naught. For every this is this. Are you following?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, so just to understand, take quickly some example how a function look like. Suppose you call it f of Z is equal to Z square. F of Z is equal to Z square. Then what is meaning of saying this? So if you take Z is equal to X plus Iy, where it will be mapped to what is your W naught, we will find, or what is your W. If we substitute this, so let this, then what is f of Z will become X plus Iy whole square. We know which already seen, this is same as x square minus y square plus I times 2x.
XY.
Okay, right? Okay, so this is your, this is nothing but your W. Are you following? Yes or no? This is real part and this is imaginary part, right? This is also a complex number, which is x square minus y square is its real part and 2xy is its imaginary part, right? If you want, you write this as Z naught, then this is W naught. If you want, you can call it. Okay. So what you observe is that if Z naught is a complex number, f of Z is also a complex number, and this real part is a function in x and y, and imaginary part is also function in x and y, right? So that we can remark here, if f of Z is equal to, if you call it this like u plus iv, okay, where Z is equal to x plus iy, then u is this u is nothing but a function in x and y. Yes or no? Then u is a function in x and v is actually a function in x comma y. Right? Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
second remark, suppose if you are f of z, because it is also a complex number, suppose if it is non-zero, and if you can able to write as r times, so we will use another notation. I mean, I'm writing in polar form. Okay, so suppose if we write f of z as some what is another notation? Some or suppose s into I instead of theta, if I write suppose some phi or alpha, okay, s times I alpha, where your z is a polar form r into e power I theta, then your s is nothing but it is a function in r and theta, and your alpha of course is again a in terms of this for example, if you see this f of z is equal to z square, then it is r square. See, if you take f of z is equal to z square, uh, then if you write in polar form, then it will become r square e power 2 theta. That means it is same as r square into cos 2 theta plus I times sin 2 theta. This is same as r square cos 2 theta plus I times r square sin 2 theta. Okay, right? So this is your u. That means if you write like u plus iv, and then you instead of writing this, you write like this. Then this u is a function of r and theta, and v is a function of r and theta. Okay, if you just write like this as u plus I times v, then it is like this. Okay, so here also you write, here also you write as u plus iv, then u is a function in r and theta, and v is also function in r and theta. Right? Any problem? No? Okay. Now once we have this function, then we can define what is meant by a limit. Okay, so limit of f of z. Okay, so I will define this. So f of z, the limit of f of z, so limit of f of z at z naught, okay, this you denote by uh, limit f of z as z tending to z naught is if, okay, is equal to, sorry, so is w naught, okay, if given if given epsilon greater than 0, there exists a delta greater than 0 such that mod f of z minus w naught is less than epsilon whenever mod z minus z naught is less than delta. Okay, so such definitions we have already seen in real analysis, right? So you can easily relate this. Are you following what is meant by limit of f of z at z naught? This is equal to w naught, and we write in this case we'll write this limit of f of z tending to z naught is equal to w naught. Okay, so when we say that that value is equal to W naught, if given any epsilon greater than 0, there exists a delta such that mod f of z minus W naught is less than epsilon whenever mod z minus z naught is less than delta. Okay, is that clear? Hmm?
Yes, sir.
So let's understand what is meant by geometrical meaning of this. That means this f of z minus W naught is less than epsilon is same as saying that this is same as saying that f of z lies in the neighborhood of epsilon neighborhood of W naught whenever z lies in the delta neighborhood of z naught. Is that clear? Yes or no? So if you call it this
Yes.
is star, so star means is same as saying that this f of z belongs to this epsilon neighborhood of W naught whenever z belongs to delta neighborhood of z naught. Is that clear? Yes or no? Hmm?
Yes, sir.
So if we put them in the graph, here, see in real analysis, x and y you can put it in one graph, but whereas a z, a complex number, it is already having a x real part as well as imaginary part. So z, which is a complex number, and f of z is a complex number, so usually we take help of two graphs whenever we want to put it. We'll take the help of two graphs. So we'll take like this. Okay, now what is the meaning of saying this one is that given any epsilon, okay, we should able to find delta. That means epsilon is already given to us, so epsilon is given to us, and we are talking about this W naught neighborhood of epsilon neighborhood of W naught. Okay, so you have W naught here, and that distance is epsilon. So if you find, take this one, if you take this, then there should able to find, we should able to find some delta. Okay, so we should able to find some delta here. So say suppose such that around z naught, so you have some z naught here, so we should able to find some delta such that, take this one, and any point z if you find here, any point in this z is mapped to f of z. Is that clear? Yes or no? Whenever z is here, then f of z is in this, right? That is the geometric meaning of saying that limit of f of z is W naught. Clear? So if you want, you can call it this is z plane and this is W plane, even though both are complex planes. So this z and this one is f of z. So here this is the function f. Is that clear? Limit of f of z, right? Anyone having doubt? The first one can observe here is that limit is unique. So whenever limit exists, limit is unique. Okay, so if limit f of z as z tends to z naught exists, then it is unique. That means this value is a unique value. Okay, so it is just like how we prove in real case, it's similar. So we whenever we want to prove something unique, how we will prove? Take two and show that those two are equal, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So suppose let limit f of z as z tending to z naught is equal to say suppose w1, and also limit f of z as z tending to z naught, this say up equal to w2. Our aim is to show that W1 is equal to W2. Okay. So we want to show that W1 is equal to W2. Right? Then limit becomes uniquely. Okay. So the idea is we'll take epsilon greater than 0 whenever in real case also, if you want to show some numbers are equal, show that their difference mod x minus y is less than epsilon for any epsilon greater than 0. So start with let epsilon greater than 0 is any arbitrary positive real number. We will show that mod epsilon mod w1 minus w2 is less than epsilon. Then we are done. Okay. Now using the fact that this limit is equal to w1, what you will get? By definition, what we know? Given any epsilon, there is some
Mod of
delta,
f
right? So then there exists delta 1 greater than 0 such that what we know? Mod f of z minus w1 is less than epsilon. Here we will take epsilon by 2. Okay, because for any epsilon it is true, so we will take epsilon by 2. Okay, whenever mod z minus z naught is less than delta 1, right? Also there exists delta 2 greater than 0 because limit of f of z is also equal to w2, right? Such that mod f of z minus w2 is less than epsilon by 2 whenever mod z minus z naught is less than delta 2, right? Now how we can find a delta? If you take these two minimum of this one, right, then what we will get? So take delta which is equal to minimum of delta 1 and delta 2. Okay, right? Any problem?
No, sir.
Then
No, sir.
what you can observe here is that whenever mod z minus z naught is less than delta 1, then it is also less than delta. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Because your
Yes, sir.
delta so no, one second. So then consider, we will show that we will consider this mod z minus z naught is less than delta. That means we are considering the delta neighborhood of this z naught. Okay, in this what we will get? This implies mod z minus z naught, because it is less than delta, it is also less than delta 1 and also less than delta 2, because delta is smaller than delta 1 as well as delta 2. So this implies for this we have mod f of z minus w1 is less than epsilon by 2 and mod f of z minus w2 is less than epsilon by 2. Okay, right? So this is true where in mod z minus z naught is less than delta. Is this clear? So this is true in this mod z minus z naught is less than delta. Then this w1 minus w2, if you observe this, you can write as for any z, fixing z in this z minus z naught less than delta, you can write this as f of z. That means add and subtract f of z. That's all. Okay. So I can write this as w1 minus f of z plus f of z minus w2, but then applying triangle inequality and rewriting, what you will get here is same as f of z minus w1 plus f of z minus w2, right, which is less than epsilon by 2 and less than epsilon by 2. So which is less than epsilon by 2 plus epsilon by 2, which is equal to epsilon. Is this clear? Yes or no? But of course this is true in this mod z minus z naught is less than delta, in that neighborhood, right? But now as epsilon is greater than 0 is arbitrary. Arbitrary means you can take however value you want. Greater than 0 is only required. So you take epsilon is very small, then their difference is less than epsilon, means what we should get is the only thing is w1 minus w2. This should be a 0 number, right? So therefore you should get w1 is equal to w. Is this clear? Any problem? Hmm?
No, sir.
Is proof clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So when you are defining this limit, what you are talking about here is we are considering the neighborhood of z0, right? So that is important. So if at all this z0 is an interior point, then such neighborhood exists. Okay, so we'll remark what I'm saying. So we'll write as a remark. So when you talk about limit, so limit of f of z as z tending to z0, when we are discussing about this limit, what we are points we are talking, mod z minus z0 is less than delta. So this z, it should be in the neighborhood of z0. Okay, so we are considering, so you can call it for limit this equal to w0, we are considering z points of uh, some neighborhood of z0, that is mod z minus z0 is less than delta, right? Because mod z minus z0 is less than delta is same as saying that z belongs to this n delta of z0. Is this clear? Yes or no? Now if when we are talking about a neighborhood, what is the guarantee that f is defined for all such z? Okay, if we are talking about domain of f, okay, so if your domain of f for all z belongs to s, it is not necessary that f of z is defined. Okay, that is possible if that z0 whatever we are considering is a interior point. So if you take z0 is an interior point, then there exists a neighborhood, okay, where which is completely again contained in s, so f of z is defined. If not, if it is a boundary point, then we will consider only points belongs to that domain. Okay, so if z0 is an interior point, z0 is an interior point of s, which is the domain. Okay, this domain of f, then there exists a neighborhood of z0 completely lies in s, so f is defined for all those points. Okay, and f is defined for all such z's, for all z. Now if at all our z0 what we are taking is not an interior point, that means if it is a boundary point. Okay, so if suppose z0 is a boundary point of s, then what we'll take, so whatever neighborhood you take, some points will be outside s. Okay, so those points we don't calculate f of those points. Are you following? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So then what we will take, so whatever neighborhood, so for example take like this. Okay, so what is here, they are outside s. Okay, this much part whatever you are calling, this is s. So when you talking about this is your point z0, you take any neighborhood, then only this much part we will calculate. That means we take z which are part of this s, and for only those points we will consider f of z. Is this clear? Hmm?
Yes, sir.
Then we
Yes, sir.
consider f of z where Z belongs to S intersection this n epsilon of Z naught. Okay, that means whatever outside that we don't consider, because obviously F is not defined in that. Okay, there may be problem of F defining all such points. Okay, let's see a example so that you can understand. So we'll just solve one problem. Example, find we can say instead of find, you can show that uh, limit of f of z, which is I z bar by 2, okay, as z tending to 1 is equal to, of course it is I by 2, anyone can guess, where in the open disk, that means the domain, the open disk, mod z less than 1. Okay, so our domain of definition is mod z less than 1, right? So if you see the picture, you will understand what is meant by this remark. Then we will solve the problem. Solving the problem is not a difficult one. uh, so we'll first draw and understand. First, whatever mod z is less than 1, how it look like? It look like, so if you take this one, this is what mod z less than 1. Okay, so this is radius 1, this is mod z less than 1, right? Now if I take any point, z sub z naught is here, this is my point z, okay, and if I take this is point 1, because I want to talk about z tending to z naught, so this is my point 1, right? And I will take some delta, because we want to talk about mod z minus z naught is less than delta, right? So if I take a delta neighborhood around this 1, okay, so suppose I will write this is my delta, okay, then f, what we will consider, we will consider only this much part. Is that clear? Yes or no? So we will take only z, such that z belongs to your domain S as well as this neighborhood. Are you following? Yes or no? Hmm? This
Yes,
is nothing but this mod z minus is intersected with this one. Are you following? Hmm? So
yes, sir.
for
Yes, sir.
only z,
Yes, sir.
we will see whether we can have that definition or not. Okay. So how you will show this? How you will solve this problem? So let epsilon greater than 0. We want to find a delta greater than 0, such that if we want to show that this limit is this, what we want to show? Such that mod f of z, which is I z bar upon 2 f of z minus this is w naught, so which is same as I by 2, is less than epsilon whenever mod z minus z naught, our z naught is 1, is less than delta. Is this clear? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
But that is same as simply
Yes, sir.
simplify this.
Yes, sir.
What is this value? How you can simplify? So that will be less than epsilon, we will make it I times z bar minus I. This is same as I, you can take common, and modulus of I is 1 by 2. Modulus of I is 1 or not? So what you have here is z bar minus 1. Is this clear? I have
Yes, sir.
taken, if you want just for first step, you write like this. But absolute value of I is what? Is same as 1. So 1 by 2 into this I will write as 1 bar. 1 bar is same as 1. Okay, so z bar minus 1. This I can write as here. Is that clear? But we know absolute value of
Yes,
z
sir.
is same as absolute value of z bar. So this is same as z minus 1. Yes or no? We want this is less than epsilon. this is less than epsilon if and only if mod z minus 1 is less than 2 epsilon. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if you see here, mod z minus 1 is less than delta we want, and this will be less than epsilon if and only if mod z minus 1 is less than 2 epsilon. So therefore, we can take delta as 2 epsilon or not? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So if you take delta
Yes,
as
sir.
our 2 epsilon, our problem is solved. So therefore, if you take delta as 2 epsilon, take delta is equal to 2 epsilon and assume that mod z minus z naught is less than delta. Z naught is our 1 here. Okay. So mod z minus 1 is less than delta. Then mod this whatever we are having I times z bar by 2 minus I by 2, which is equal to, we have simplified this as z minus 1, but z minus 1 is less than delta, so this value is less than delta by 2, but delta by 2 is same as epsilon, right? Is that clear? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So therefore, limit of I times z bar by 2 as z tending to 1 is equal to I by 2. Okay. Remember, this 1 is a boundary point. Is that clear? Boundary point for this mod z less than 1. This 1 we are, whatever we are talking here, is a boundary point or not? Boundary point for this disk mod z less than 1. Okay. Yes. So we'll stop here, and we'll next class we'll see some properties of limits.
Sir.